Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome.
Who just asked if we could hear them?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Who just asked if we could hear them? Who are you?
Gotcha. Yeah. So my name is Elizabeth Navares, and I am the supervisor for Mile High United Way's 211. Basically, I help coordinate the childcare, the CCRNR side of referrals for families.
Okay, cool. And we're gonna wait. We're probably gonna wait like 3 or 4 more minutes for everybody to jump on before we officially begin.
Perfect.
All right, for those of you just logging on, we're gonna just wait a couple more minutes to get everybody logged in. And we are recording, so just so you all know.
Charlie, have you started it yet?
Yes, there are attendees in the room.
And they can hear us, correct?
Attendee. Cool.
Yes. Cool. Muting myself. Hello, everyone.
All right, let's maybe give it one more minute and then we'll get going. Hope everybody's having a good week so far, enjoying some cooler weather. We've really enjoyed it. All right. So it looks like we have about 50-ish attendees. And it's growing, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Charlie Ruda. I am a Qris coordinator here at the state. This is my first time facilitating state TA days, so I apologize in advance for any technical hiccups or anything like that. We're already missing Monica very much, and she was definitely an expert at this. So we're gonna do our best to fill her shoes. But we do have a pretty packed state TA day today, so we should probably go ahead and get started. Looks like first up, we are going to be hearing from Elizabeth Navares, who will introduce herself and take it away.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate the space to talk about our work. My name is Elizabeth Navares, and I am a supervisor for Mile High United Way's 211. Part of my job includes supporting the CCR&R call center here at Mile High United Way's 211. And so we have a team of people that handle the referrals for families across the state of Colorado. And we love the opportunity to serve our families and to provide them with licensed childcare referrals, along with much needed information surrounding quality childcare, licensing, the Colorado Shines system. And so it's so great to have that connection with families. I don't have any slides or any data to share with you, but I do want to take the opportunity to just let you all know that we are connecting with families, helping them, and it's been a tough year with COVID. I think all of us have been heavily impacted one way or another, but here at 211, we are grateful to have the connections and the partnerships with the state and with other organizations. And what that means for our families is that we're able to connect with them and not only provide them with their direct need for licensed childcare referrals, but also for other pieces of basic needs or referrals or information that they're needing. So our childcare navigators are experts navigating the 211 database. So we have been able to connect our families with referrals for basic needs. So we may have families who are needing, on top of a childcare referral, who need clothing or information on rent payment assistance or food pantries. So we're able to offer those connections to our families. We're continuing on training and building our team so that we can provide those connections and those referrals to everyone who is in need. And so we've been incredibly blessed and running fast and furious, but we're close to finishing our first quarter of the fiscal year. We're almost back to a steady state. Who knows what's going to happen, but at least here at 211, we are working towards that steady state and serving our families. I'm happy to say that we are excited to see an increase in enhanced referrals. So we have been connecting with families and providing them childcare referrals, and we saw a few years back the need for families to have that additional support in terms of finding a spot for childcare. There was a need, and we took it upon ourselves to meet that need and help families call providers to find those available spaces. This has been a very successful initiative. Families have been taking that offer, and we have been connecting with them and providing that additional service. And lately, we have seen an increase in those services and families saying yes to this support that we are giving them. So we're very excited about that. We are working on new processes so that we can make this process a little bit more smoother on our business side, and then also for our families on that other end. And lastly, I want to share with you all that we have been working with Illuminate Colorado. This is a very exciting partnership, and this is to support families who are undergoing substance use disorder treatment and searching for childcare. So we have been working very closely with them. We are trying to figure out a way that we can connect families to childcare and also at the same time offer that additional support when it comes to substance use disorder treatment. And so we'll continue to work with that partnership. Right now, we don't have any data behind this work. We haven't had any families, but we're working very closely with Illuminate Colorado, and hopefully we can have the data behind that work, and I can share with you all a little bit more on what that looks like and how meaningful and impactful that connection has been. That is pretty much all that I have. I want to thank you again for the space to share about our work. And as always, please let me know if you have any questions, if you have any observations, or if you want to connect with me, please reach out and connect with me. I would love to have that connection. And as usual, you will receive my monthly reports on our work and the families that we have served. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Are there any questions? Does anyone want to raise their hand and ask a question? Or you can always chat in our chat or in the question box if anyone has any questions for Elizabeth. But all the great work that's going on with 211. We really appreciate your partnership. We couldn't do it without you guys fielding a lot of the calls from the field. So
thank you.
And Elizabeth, do you mind just typing your email address in the chat? You
Of
have
course.
a second, so that way folks know.
Will do.
One comment more than a question. Thank you, Elizabeth. You are wonderful.
Thank you.
Cool. Oh, it looks like we do have, let's see, Rick, it looks like did have a question. So I'm going to unmute him if he still has that question.
Just wondering if people can put their names in when there's on the screen.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm not sure how to update my name because I logged in as this is our human services account. But again, my name is Charles Ruda, Charlie. I'm a QRIS coordinator. All right. I think that's everything. I'm not seeing any other questions or hands raised. So we will move on to our next presenter. That is going to be Melissa Swain from Clayton Early Learning, who is going to provide a QRIS ratings update. You're still muted.
I am just going to pull up my PowerPoint here. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Let's see. Charlie, are you able to give me screen sharing permission?
I guess. Okay. Okay, you should have it now.
Perfect. Okay, you guys see the PowerPoint?
It worked.
All right, so just a few updates for you guys today on Colorado Shines ratings. The first one here is scheduling. So January 2022, all providers will be scheduled to rate in January 2022. Will be notified by tomorrow. So those communications will be going out this afternoon as well as tomorrow. These providers will be rated using the refreshed QRIS framework and the third editions of the environment rating scales. The next piece here, we're just going to dive into a couple of reminders. So we've been hearing some questions around score sheets. So just a reminder that ERS score sheets are no longer provided for Colorado Shines ratings. This practice has been occurring with virtual ratings and will continue once we launch the new framework. Some of the reasons here are included. So programs can evaluate the results of the classroom observation by referring to their detailed classroom reports, as well as the ERS analysis report. So that analysis report provides an overview of the environment rating scale scores for each classroom observed. So that's a great resource to utilize. The ERS scoring is conducted by reliable, highly trained assessors to capture observation details, but was never intended to be a final report. The ERS authors called ERSI, which is the Environment Rating Scale Institute, support the use of detailed reports as opposed to providing score sheets. And this is actually a quote I wanted to share with you here from one of the environment rating scale authors, Miss Thelma Harms. So I'll just pause here for a second because it's kind of a long quote, but this was her response when we were discussing providing score sheets. Okay, so hopefully everyone got through that. If not, you know, these slides will be shared afterwards. I'll make sure Charlie has these slides. So in addition, another reminder is just around consultations. So consultations after your rating are optional, but they are highly encouraged. And when they are required is if a provider wishes to appeal or resubmit. So if a provider wants to appeal or resubmit, they must have a consultation with their lead assessor first. And we just wanted to highlight the purpose of the consultation again. And this is really to highlight successes and discuss future areas of quality improvement, both for the program and classroom, to help support children, families, and staff. It's a good place to discuss strategies or maybe different approaches with your lead assessor who's seen lots of different programs across the state and may have some really neat and creative ways for providers to meet some of the indicators. The program representative, which is typically the lead teacher, should read the rating result reports. Sometimes it's also the director, right? So make sure they've read all the reports, prepare all the questions for the consultation ahead of time, and add any clarifying questions that are focused on future quality improvements. The Quality Assessment Associate's role is to facilitate that conversation, celebrate the program's commitment to quality improvement, point out strengths, answer questions, and provide clarifying information on future quality improvements. And the Quality Improvement Coach's role, they should be invited by the program if that's their choice, and they should support the program as requested and pose questions that are focused on future quality improvements as well. So the big piece here to remember is that consultations are meant to be a good conversation, focusing on that continuous quality improvement journey, and shouldn't be focused on, hey, I just want to get 1 point to get to the next level. How do I do that? So we really want these conversations to be meaningful for both parties involved, and so wanted to share some of these reminders today.
So
Now,
Melissa, we did have one comment, and then I just before we get ahead of ourselves. So Stacy Petty wrote that in their region, our coaches use these score sheets to help them set up goals for the programs, but they are never just given to the program. So I guess the question would be, can those score sheets still be provided for coaches if they're requested?
That'll be something that I'll have to look into to confirm for sure, yes or no. So we can certainly look into that and get back to you as well. But really everything is going to be in that report, so you can set goals for coaching based off of that classroom report. Any other questions before we just dive into resources?
Go ahead and dive into resources.
All right. So exciting news, yay. QRS refresh information sessions are coming. So these sessions will provide information on the new indicators in the refreshed framework that's beginning to be launched here in January. There'll also be Q&A sessions or portions in every session. There are 2 sessions in October that are for coaches and early childhood council staff only. And that's really because we're hoping to get the information to the coaches and those that provide support to programs first. So that way, as providers start attending information sessions and have questions, you all can help support them as well. So October 11th at 1 p.m. and October 21st at 4 p.m. are those 2 sessions. One of those sessions will be geared towards centers. So if you support centers, you'll want to attend one of those. The other one will be support or geared towards family childcare homes. And so if you support both centers and family childcare homes, you'll want to attend both sessions. If you cannot attend these dates, because we realize these are two very specific dates, you can certainly join any of the other sessions being offered. Registration for the coach sessions will not be posted to Clayton's website, so do register through the links in the flyer. So there are a couple of flyers I'm going to share with Charlie after this session, and he'll make sure he gets those out to y'all. And then there's going to be 7 additional sessions that are going to be offered for early childhood professionals. Those start in November. So again, there'll be a flyer that we're going to share with you that will have a link where folks can view all the sessions being offered and get registered. So they will be posted to Clayton's website. And again, all the sessions do include kind of like an open Q&A portion towards the end. So more to come on that, and we will certainly send some flyers, but we're excited to start launching these information sessions.
And then we do have a couple questions about this. So when will the evidence guide be released?
So I think it should be in its final stages. And Michelle, you might have more information on this than I do right now, but it is in its final stages of being drafted. There has been like an email that went out from the Office of Early Childhood that did include all of the indicators. So it doesn't have the framework that really details everything, but it is a nice overview of all of the indicators in the new framework. And then the evidence guides are coming next. I believe the goal was to get those out no later than before these information sessions, because we will be sharing it with you in advance so you can read it ahead of time as you walk into the session. So Michelle, I think that's all correct, yeah?
Yes. So, and we're looking to have the evidence guide to early childhood councils by early October, hopefully first week of October. So we're in process of finishing up the drafts, and then we have to review them for final edits. So, and then Stacy, to your question of if there's going to be a reference to the Credential 2.0 or the 3.0, the only thing we're addressing is that the credential needs to be valid. So if it's an expired credential or getting ready to expire, then they'll need to apply for the 3.0. If they have a current credential in 2.0 and it's still current or it's still being honored, then that would be sufficient for that piece for the workforce in the evidence guide. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, that did help.
All right, great. So yeah, we'll make sure you guys get those flyers and can start getting registered. We do have capacity for each session of up to 200 folks per session. So we do have a pretty large group that we can sustain in these information sessions. So feel free to register and fill up those slots. Just a couple more resources for you. So here is the provider registration for QRIS refresh information sessions. So again, the ones that are geared towards providers, those are going to be posted on Clayton's website. They're already up today, so you can check those out. And then we're still continuing free environment rating scale training in ECHRS 3, ITERS 3, and FICRS 3. So those are going through December still, so do check Clayton's website for free training on the scales. And then ERS 3 coach training and certification. So if coaches are seeking certification in the newest edition of the scales, there are some trainings coming up in December that are on Clayton's training website that are the prerequisite to be certified. One of the ways, there are also multiple ways that you can become certified. So you can use Clayton training, you can use the PDIS courses that we have out on the website, and all of that information is on Clayton's website as well. And then ERS 3 coach certification is still being conducted virtually. So that link there is where you can find more information on how to become certified, what are the prerequisites required, and you can request a certification. So I'll just pause for any final questions because that's all I have for you guys today for updates.
And I did, per request, I did post a link to the release of the updated framework in the chat and in the questions. So if anyone missed that email, you can look at the new standards in there. Any other questions for Melissa? All right. Not seeing any hands raised. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Melissa. We really appreciate you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your Thursday.
All right. So next up, we have Lisa Matter and Katie Poston, who will be joining us to discuss engaging Colorado's friends and family, neighbor, child care providers. Who should I give presentation to?
To Katie.
All righty.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm just introducing Katie and champion this report. As all of you know, expanding quality in infant toddler care is one initiative that the state has that is accessible to family, friend, and neighbor care providers. And so I want to make sure that everybody just has had an opportunity to hear voices of the providers that Early Milestones engaged in this report. We were particularly struck by things that have direct impact with us. For example, that some FFN providers are finding that when they come to training, they're not feeling welcome, and that is not mission aligned with the work of the EQ initiative. And so we want to engage with everyone to say, how are we meeting the needs of all of the mixed delivery system from our little place, particularly infants and toddlers, but for all of our children, meeting the needs of those adults so that they can meet the needs of the children we are all serving. So I'm going to just pass it over to you, Katie, and thank you for being willing to provide this overview. This is a great group of people because they have those local connections as well.
The PowerPoint. Just want to make sure I'm all set.
We're seeing the PowerPoint, but you're super quiet.
Oh, I'm very quiet. Okay, I can get closer. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure I speak loudly. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Dana Poston, and I'm a project manager at Early Milestones, Colorado. And just want to thank you all so much for the invitation to be here and the opportunity to talk to you today about what we learned about family, friend, and neighbor childcare in Colorado. And as Lisa said, we want to make sure that all of our workforce, all subsections, whether they be licensed or exempt from licensure, all folks who are committed to taking care of young children have the supports and resources that they need to be able to do that and do that well. So this work began in January of 2021, and the overarching project goals were to elevate the voices of FFN providers and those who support them across the state to influence early childhood systems, and to take that information and what we learned from those interviews to identify opportunities to build early childhood systems that are more inclusive and supportive of family, friend, and neighbor childcare providers and the families that they serve. So to do this, we conducted 40 interviews, 20 interviews with FFN providers and 20 interviews with professionals who support them across the state. As many of you probably already know, FFN care is childcare that's provided by family members, friends, and trusted neighbors, typically within home settings. FFN care exists in every community across the nation and is a mainstay of childcare for rural communities, infants and toddlers, immigrant families, Black and Latinx families, and families with lower incomes. Families choose FFN care for a variety of reasons, including that they may need care during flexible or non-traditional hours, a convenience in location near the home or the workplace of the family, They may prefer a provider they already know and trust, and they may prefer a provider that shares their cultural and linguistic backgrounds. In some cases and in some areas across the state, FFN care may also be the most affordable or available option to families. So this map here shows that the counties represented by the 40 interviewees that informed this project. The counties served by FFN support organizations are highlighted in navy, and the counties of residence for the FFN provider interviewees are noted with a check mark in the circle. Just a little bit more about who we interviewed to inform the work. Interviewees from FFN support organizations represented early childhood councils, community-based organizations, mental health clinics, and higher education institutions. Of the 20 provider interviewees, the FFN providers that we interviewed, 10 identified as Latinx or Hispanic, 6 as white or non-Hispanic, 2 as Black, 1 as Indigenous, and 1 as Middle Eastern. Of those 20 interviews, 12 interviews were conducted in English, 7 were conducted in Spanish, and 1 was conducted in Arabic. And those that were conducted in languages other than English, those interviewees were supported with translation of materials and the interview protocol ahead of time, as well as interpretation during the interview. So many FFN providers don't self-identify using the terminology FFN, or typically think of themselves as childcare providers. Many of them see themselves as a grandmother or an aunt, simply helping out their families and providing childcare so that their family members can go to work. Many of the support organizations interviewed said that this fact can make identification of who's providing care as an FFN provider in communities a bit more difficult. But they also shared many keys to successful identification of FFNs in communities and how they are successfully engaging them in support services. So support organizations with employees who reflect the communities that they serve in race, language, culture, and lived experiences stated that their efforts to build those trusting relationships, identify who's providing care in communities, and engage them in support services that they have to offer are easier and more successful. Another key is to communicate in the primary language of the providers that you're aiming to serve. We also found that word of mouth, group texts like WhatsApp, Facebook groups, and emails are among the top forms of communication used by and among FFN providers. Support organizations also said it's really important to understand that FFN's experiences, desires, and needs for support may vary widely from provider to provider. While a support organization may have a training to offer, a training will only go so far if what the provider actually needs is around basic needs like housing or financial assistance or access to healthy food. Those support organizations who feel really successful in this space build relationships using grassroots community engagement tactics, like getting out into the community, knocking on doors, visiting parks and libraries, and connecting with existing trusted community leaders. Support organizations also noted the importance of maintaining consistent open lines of communication to continue that relationship building following the first encounter. Because FFN providers may not be ready to engage with nonprofit or government agencies right away, but keeping those lines of communication open lets them know that there is someone there if and when they are ready. And lastly, support organizations shared the importance of approaching FFN providers with humility and honoring their experience and expertise providing childcare. I love this one quote from an FFN support organization interviewee. We are an organization by the community, for the community, and of the community. that is one of the successes. One of the keys to success is to reflect the communities they're served, and that's why they have less trouble engaging or establishing trust with individuals. So grassroots community engagement, relationship building, and maintaining open lines of communication all require time, staffing, and resources. We can fund grassroots community engagement so that trusted FFN support organizations can get out and identify who's providing care, build relationships with them, and engage them in support services that may be beneficial to them. We can also ensure that the FFN support workforce more closely reflects the communities they serve by creating career pathways and advancement opportunities for people of color and bilingual individuals. And providing technical support to FFN providers also requires time, resources, and staffing. We can create FFN navigator positions to help FFN providers identify and utilize the supports that are available to them. Oftentimes, FFN providers are peripheralized and left out of systems level meetings, but we can partner with and compensate local organizations that have those trusting relationship with FFN providers to let them know when meetings are. But letting them know where meetings are isn't quite enough, right? We also have to provide inclusive conditions for their meaningful engagement and contribution to the meetings, like simultaneous interpretation, translation of the materials in their primary languages, childcare and meals when those meetings are in person. We can also consider alternative meeting times during evenings or weekends to accommodate the busy schedules of FFN providers. And we can also pay them for their time and expertise and for providing their feedback when folks are trying to develop programs that support FFNs. And lastly, we can convene the professionals like we're doing now that support FFN providers in community-based organizations, government agencies, and early childhood councils, so that we can learn from each other, share best practices, talk about what's working, what's not working when it comes to supporting FFN providers, troubleshooting those common issues, and discuss policy and systems needs. FFN providers describe difficulty locating information, trainings, and resources, especially in languages other than English. They identified specific needs for resources when they recognize behavioral, social, emotional, or developmental concerns, and for resources to help them better serve children with special needs. Only 20% of the FFNs I interviewed were aware of their local early childhood council, and none were aware of the state's professional development information system or the free trainings that are there. So now that documentation status is no longer a barrier to obtain a child care license, we may see an influx of culturally and linguistically diverse individuals who do want to become licensed. There are some outstanding questions that need to be answered around if obtaining a child care license would pose any unintended consequences on undocumented individuals who are seeking permanent residence in the US. We also need to build staffing capacity and support organizations like early childhood councils and other community-based organizations to help guide those who want to become licensed through the process, or to connect them to other supports or trainings that could be beneficial in their role as a child care provider. And we also need to make sure that the information that these folks need, whether that be related to licensure, CCAP, the qualified exempt process, is all available in multiple languages. The state could also benefit from additional capacity to partner with FFN support organizations and coordinate state-level supports and resources available to FFN providers. To reduce financial barriers, we can provide scholarships for FFN providers to complete pre-licensure trainings Or for those who may not be seeking licensure, we can provide scholarships to help them attain additional credentials if that's what they choose to do. We also clearly have work to do to raise awareness among the FFN provider community of our existing support structures like PDIS, EQIT trainings, our early childhood councils, Child Find, and the funding opportunities that are available to them, like the qualified exempt process to accept CCAP. And we can fund and staff FFN peer support groups to help reduce isolation, provide trainings and resources, and encourage knowledge sharing among FFN providers. I really also love this quote. When thinking of supporting us, I hope early childhood decision makers think of the kids we care for first. Everything we do is for the children, and we want to do what's best for them. Sometimes we need more information and support to do what's best for the kids in our care. We love them and we care for them, and we want nothing more than to see them learn, grow, and succeed. Many providers described experiences of discrimination based on race, documentation status, and primary language when interacting with early childhood systems. These experiences impact their well-being as well as their ability and their desire to access supports and services that help them in their role as child care providers. Some providers recounted their own negative experiences in early care and K through 12 education settings and stated that their motivation to provide care to begin with was to protect children from the discrimination that they had faced. FFN providers also understand they don't receive support equal to the licensed workforce. Some FFN providers describe feeling discriminated against because the type of care they provide is exempt from licensure. So while many early childhood councils offer trainings to all providers, some FFN providers shared that others in the room made them feel unwelcome in those settings and made negative comments about the type of care they provide. We know that provider well-being has direct impacts on the children in their care. So we not only have to find ways to stop the discrimination that these folks are facing, but also to help them heal from past traumatic experiences. Here's another quote from one of our FFN providers related to the recommendations I'm about to present. You guys, just 1 second. So these recommendations are focused on building professionals' capacity to approach all FFN providers, regardless of difference, with respect, cultural humility, and cultural competence. We can also work to ensure that the FFN support workforce in early childhood councils, local governments, and other support organizations more closely reflects the community served in race, language, lived experience, and culture by intentionally creating those pathways and advancement opportunities for people of color and diverse language individuals. Finally, we also need to make sure that we mitigate the impacts of discrimination on FFN providers and ensure that they have access to physical and mental health services. While Colorado's entire early childhood workforce faces inadequate compensation, FFN providers can strongly consider the family's financial situations and their ability to pay when setting their rates. In interviews, we did not ask how much FFN providers are charging, but some folks did volunteer that information. I heard as little as $10 a day for providing care for 8 to 10 hours. FFN providers are accepting lower wages to help families out, and by doing so, they're ultimately subsidizing the child care system. Nearly 90% of FFNs interviewed expressed financial challenges related to the costs of providing care, mostly around healthy food for the children in their care and learning materials like books, toys, and art supplies for the kids to use while they're there. However, only one had gone through the process to become a qualified exempt provider to accept CCAP. Most interviewees were either not aware of the qualified exempt process or did not know that FFN providers could apply. So to address these issues, we could explore extending eligibility to FFN providers so that they can access the child and adult care food program to help offset the costs of healthy food for children in their care. And at the same time, we can also work to connect them with existing efforts that prevent child hunger across the state. We also should consider increasing the reimbursement rates, likely for all providers, but specifically for qualified exempt providers, and dig deeper to understand what it actually costs to create a quality learning environment within a home, and to understand their experiences and barriers when they do participate in the qualified exempt CCAP program, to continue to make additional improvements and remove barriers. Individuals in FFN support organizations express concerns that FFN providers and the families they serve would be excluded from universal preschool funding. As we gear up to implement universal pre-K, Colorado faces challenges to recruit and retain a workforce large enough to serve all of the state's 4-year-old children. However, some FFN providers have existing trainings, credentials, and education. Some even have dreams of becoming early childhood teachers or licensed family child care homes, and may simply need career navigation support or a few classes to get there. As we consider the qualification requirements for universal pre-K, we should explore the potential of FFN providers as another part of the mixed delivery system, as another part of our early childhood workforce to help meet this increasing demand. So Colorado has made some progress towards better understanding the FFN landscape. However, work is still needed to ensure that all providers have equitable access to essential resources across the state. Multiple organizations declined interviews for this project because they currently lack concerted efforts to support FFN providers. This suggests that there are geographic areas that may need additional investments and capacity building. We can also map existing and upcoming funding streams that could support implementation of these recommendations across the state and bring together the key players to leverage existing resources and roll up our sleeves and get to work. So I know that was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I'm going to pause now for any questions that you guys have for me.
Thanks, Katie. There was a question in the chat. Does this study discuss a model for how many FFN providers can be supported by each staff member of an organization, or how much time on average is needed for different types of FFN providers? And we did share a copy of the report. Lisa shared a copy of the report in the questions as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, we didn't dig into how much time per staff of a support organization would be required to support FFN providers. That's a really good question. I did hear that with this particular group of providers, that at times they may need lots of support, and at times they may be quite silent and not need anything. So just having capacity in place to kind of be flexible as much as one can, and respond to the needs and the willingness to engage of FFN providers, it would be important, but I don't have a specific answer to that question. Do we have any other questions?
Not seeing any other questions. I'm not seeing anyone with their hand raised or anything like that. So I think that's it. Katie, if you also don't mind just sharing your information in the chat, that would be wonderful. We really appreciate taking the time to talk about this, and I know that this is going to be an ongoing conversation especially in terms of universal pre-K and how this work is going to relate to that huge leap. So we really appreciate you sharing some of that information. Cool. And just, yeah, other people agree with me. Great work, helpful presentation. We really appreciate you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, and now we have Lisa Matter, who's going to be talking about the EQIT training of trainers. And I just gave you presenter privileges if you do have anything to share.
I forget, is this gonna, which screen is it gonna, is it gonna pick right away which screen it's gonna show?
You pulled up the working agenda for EQ annual meeting.
Okay, that's not the right one. Let's see, no, not change presenter. I know, I need to pick which screen. Not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one, that one. Now are you seeing a slide?
Yes, there's a cool chart with a lovely little heart in the middle.
Okay, and it's filling up the whole screen.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Now I've figured out the logistics. So thank you, everybody. This video is so disorienting because it's turned backwards and just strikes me how tight the side of my face is when I look at myself in the opposite direction. It's coming again, Infant Toddler Specialist Foundations course. So I'm just going to do a high-level overview and set of reminders so that people can start thinking about, do we want to hire a new infant toddler specialist? Do we know someone in our community who's really ready to step into the role of infant toddler specialist and providing coaching and training to those infant toddler early care educators in your community, as our big goal always of ensuring that those in that little heart in the middle, that the infants and the toddlers and the families in your community are in healthy and thriving relationships, both with each other and with the caregivers who provide care for them. The Expanding Quality in Infant Toddler Care Initiative continues to hold these as our core values. We are looking for and growing strengths. We are looking for and building relationships because we know that all later learning happens on that foundation of the relationships that happen in those first years. And we do that through professional development for all infant and toddler early care educators. It's nice to follow Katie's report and remind us that that includes our FFN community. Anyone who's caring for a child younger than 3 who's not their own child can receive services provided by the EQ initiative by individuals who are certified by the EQ initiative. So we know that funding can flow to you when you have a certified and up-to-date individual. And we're getting ready to make that certification opportunity available again. And that's because of our big goal. We always wanting to train and employ, both train and employ more infant and toddler specialists. Our last cohort in 2021, or 2020 rather, the craziest cohort ever, did include 3 people who were never planning to work for early childhood councils. They work in another organization that now has the staff and capacity to provide EQIT courses or other services. We can't fund those for them, but we can make them available for places and communities where you can't really have where the fit isn't right. So you might be thinking about people, organizations in your community, if you're not an EQ funded community, that might have the capacity to add this skill set onto somebody who works, a mental health consultant, another coach in your community. Because we do want to see that everywhere that a baby is cared for by someone who's not their parents, that caregiving adult has the support of an infant toddler specialist who has the ability and the content knowledge to be able to provide the kind of support, the unique support that infant and toddler care providers require. And we want to see that evidence-based training and coaching is being provided in those settings. And that's what we do, professional development. You probably know us most for the EQIT course, but the Infant Toddler Specialist Foundation course that Eva Jankowski will teach and facilitate in early 2022 does also certify people to teach EQIT, but it certifies them to be an infant toddler specialist, which is a special qualification, a special kind of coach, a special kind of trainer. But EQIT itself matches all the professional development that we want those folks to be able to provide. It's strengths-based, We believe that all caregivers in every setting can grow and change. It delivers professional development through relationships because it's focused on building relationships. Now we've all learned a lot in the last 18 months about delivering those services virtually in a way that still builds relationships. It is evidence-based. There's evidence that the EQIT course itself, coupled with 8 to 15 hours of coaching, changes practice in a way that no other contexts in Colorado have changed practice where infants and toddlers are served. And of course, it is infant and toddler care focused. A lot of people do confusingly use EQIT, the course, to earn an early childhood teacher qualification, even when they don't serve infants and toddlers. That's not what it's for. So we're always encouraging you and your community, the infant toddler specialists themselves, and educators. Take this course if you're caring for infants and toddlers. I'm going to skip through this actually real quick because I know we don't have all the time in the world. When you as an early childhood counsel want to deliver an EQIT course or have an EQ infant toddler specialist, so we have a couple of counsels who last year and this year didn't deliver a course, but their EQ infant toddler specialists maintain their certification and we can still fund their coaching. So some counsels were delivering Lean to Grow without an EQIT course. And some counsels were delivering coaching to people who'd taken EQIT in the past or were planning to in the future, or perhaps had taken it virtually in another community. So when you have a qualified EQ infant toddler specialist, you can access funds to deliver coaching and training to infant toddler early care educators. When you deliver the course, we always want it to be adult friendly, adult learning friendly. Used to be locations, now that's including adult learning friendly Zoom. All participants must attend and participate in all 16 modules of the EQIT curriculum in order to earn that certificate. And then we ask you to really keep good records of who has completed the course and how many hours of coaching they have had. And that's because we report that federally, but also because we want to know who is getting these services and where they're going and who is not getting these services. We are looking forward to a future when the PDIS holds most of that record keeping, who is enrolled in the class, who completed the class, who's receiving coaching, how many hours. We know we're still building that out as we fly it. The EQIT course itself always has 2 instructors. Part of our model of making it accessible to be taught by anyone, by the right person in your community, is that we know that one person might not have everything needed to bring that class together, and that holding relationships means that you need someone to be there for the relationships and for the content. They are always 3-hour modules. There are always 48 hours in the EQIT class. And the curriculum is always replicated. Does that mean we're reading from an agenda and reading from notes? No. It means that these 4 main things, or I might break them into 5, always there's an adult learning stance. Central themes and agenda are presented. Always there are interactive learning experiences where adults get to talk about what they already know and bring that to share with each other. There are always relate reflections at the end of an EQIT class, and that is the bridge from the content and interactive experiences to change in practice. What are you going to do next? Contingent responsive way with infants and toddlers. And we always ask the educators to evaluate the course and give that feedback back to the instructors, to the EQIT instructors, because even though we want it to be replicated as written, we know it needs to be delivered responsibly in your community. And so how do you get someone who can do that? You find someone in your community, the right person to be teaching the course and or coaching. So we really want you to be thinking right now about people who might have the time to provide coaching during work hours and or have the time to provide EQIT classes after work hours and on weekends. Our infant toddler specialist course is how that person gets qualified to teach EQIT in your community. It is open to everyone who serves adults who serve infants and toddlers. So again, it might not be just your usual suspects, but think about other people in your community who are serving those caregiving adults. Our course that Eva will facilitate in January through June of 2022 builds those teaching and coaching skills in the adults with a laser-like focus on relationship building. It will build knowledge in infant and toddler development. You will learn about babies and their development. Not all of it, not all the development. We don't have all the time in the world, but there's a focus again on relationship development, on culture and family, because we know that identity is forming in the first 3 years, and it's so critically important for that foundation to later learning that infants and toddlers have someone wrapped around them that understands and values their culture and family. It is going to build knowledge of best practice for infant and toddler group care, again, with an emphasis on relationship building, continuity of care, primary caregiving, delivering services in mixed age groups where children can have those continuous relationships. That's the gold standard best practice, but also the reflective capacity of the adults. The best practice in infant and toddler care is a supported adult who can pause and be a supported caregiver. And then a big part of the work that people will do when they participate in the Infant Toddler Specialist Foundations course is practicing facilitating EQIT courses. We want to see how they can do those things themselves so that we know that when they go out into your community, they can keep growing and learning. So the prerequisites, anyone who wants to join the Infant Toddler Specialist Foundation course must have completed EQIT. It's okay if it wasn't recent, although you might want to take it more recently if it was been 15 years. They will have to have a current trainer credential. Remember that individuals who are applying for a trainer credential in the new PDIS do not need an ECPC, an Early Childhood Professional Credential 3.0, if they have a current 2.0. The current credential is current. They can apply for the trainer credential if they don't already have it. There will be some required pre-work, some applications, but those first two things, completing EQIT and earning that trainer credential, are the things to do right now if you have someone in mind to join your team, or someone you would encourage as the next step in their growth to become an EQ infant toddler specialist. So don't hesitate to reach out. I won't get back to you this week because we do have our annual meeting next week, 3 full days. Anybody is welcome to join. The topics are trauma-informed care, anti-racist practice in infant and toddler care, and gender and language affirmation, language diversity and affirmation. I think it's going to be great and intense 3 days, but I won't get back to you until the first week of October. So thank you for my very rapid talk. I'm late for another meeting, so I'm going to invite everyone to send me questions via email.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I will go ahead and put Lisa's email address in the chat as well. All right, so we have one more presenter here. Melissa Frank-Williams is going to give us a presentation on emerging and expanding. I'm not seeing her on here, but the rest of the staff. Oh, there you are. Melissa, you have organizer privileges, right? I'm not seeing you here on the staff. You are muted as well. Oh, you're the other. Okay, I see. Yeah.
Can you guys see the screen?
No. Let me. That's me. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Cool. We see the Q&A document.
Okay, let me, hold on just a sec. Let's see here, we'll move this over. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Here, just give me 1 minute here. I gotta organize this situation. Move this stuff out of the way so you're not seeing it all.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Now you just have the screen without all the other stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. So great to be back here again. And I know that many of you were on the webinar that we did last week around the increase in E&E that is now effective starting actually Sunday of this week. So we are moving through this new process live now. And as you look at the Salesforce application, you'll notice that there have been some updates to it. So I'm going to take a few minutes to go over our regular data, but then also talk a little bit more about what the updates look like and what to expect with that increase in the funding that's available under E&E. I think we might have some time for some questions, but I also want webinar, point out that I did send out to the attendees of the webinar the follow-up to questions that were asked. And I also, sorry, I don't know what this is. Okay, so, and then also I posted in the shared Google Drive those questions specifically from the webinar. Oh, okay, is that comment from Lilith Old? You all are hearing me, right?
Yes, that was from before, the before
Okay.
times.
Okay, all right, so here we go. So here are the standard pieces of data that we talk about at these meetings, and the trend is still as it has been, where we are seeing quite a few of the applications and funding going to areas that have low or very low capacity. This is from the 8th, so earlier this month, they're these numbers. We've received 231 applications, and that the total funds granted are at 4 million. And then the total remaining is about 4.6, of course, with the caveat that we always have a pretty good chunk of funds that are under review in the pending status. So that figure doesn't necessarily mean that all of those are approved, that sometimes folks withdraw, sometimes we have other issues that cause a pause. So I'm just keeping that in mind, though, that we are closing in on the total amount. As we mentioned on the webinar, we are strongly advocating for additional funding through some of the sources that we'll see from the federal government, and that's looking good. So just stay tuned around that, which is why we are talking about these funds still, because we have strong indication that we will be seeing additional money go into that overall pot, bolstering that 8.7. The total new slots that are from the applications that we received, meaning the total that people projected that they would be serving, is 2,686. And then of those that are in the queue still, that's another 2,500. So as folks can see, it's over 5,000 slots potentially from this effort, which is pretty commendable. And that is certainly because of the work that you all have been doing to help our providers to navigate this system, to apply, to get their questions answered, and to ensure that the investments are going towards the providers and in their community who are really committed to developing and expanding slots. Okay, so, oops. So here again is our standard grid or graph that shows the number of applications that have come in to date. And my screen is a little funky, so I apologize. It doesn't have the totals on the top. But also this information is available. This slideshow will actually be in the shared file, so you can see some of this. So you can see the full amounts that the different councils are seeing in from providers. So as far as I talked about the increase and also some of the changes in the process, some of the things that are staying the same is that both the childcare, family childcare homes and centers can still apply for grants of 50,000 or less. Eligibility criteria and priority areas are staying largely the same, and that funding must be spent down by June 30th of 2022. Some of the things that are changing include the increased cap to 200,000. So that isn't for everyone. It really is now linked to the increase in slots. And as we see here, the criteria are for anybody who's a center who's applying for $50,001 to $100,000, that they must serve at least 20 new 6-week to 5-year-olds, and of those, at least 5 must be infants and toddlers. And the funding requests between 100,001 and 200,000, the program must serve at least 40 new 6-week to 5-year-olds. Of those 40, at least 10 of them must be infants and toddlers. So we've also updated Salesforce, and if you go into the application or you go into the behind the scenes view of Salesforce, you will notice some of those updates. Those are largely to prompt folks to provide some additional detail for their requests. That includes things like under each of the 4 categories, if you've applied for one or all 4, under each one of those, to provide a little bit of a narrative as to how this will impact and improve either safety and or quality of the program and allow for those additional slots, as well as some more detail about the number of infants, toddlers, and preschoolers for each category. So one of the things that we really want to be able to track better are the actual numbers of infants and toddlers in particular that we're seeing in the slots increased for, and that particular field is going to give us that information a little bit easier. Right now we can get it, but it just requires a lot of behind the scenes work. So you'll find that in the application, in addition to the revised budget form, and that budget form really is allowing for folks to provide more detail of any additional funding that they're receiving from other sources. So for instance, if the provider has also applied for ECLA's funding for increasing slots or just for support, you would put that in there as well. And the instructions on the first tab should be clear, but of course, as always, if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to me about that. So additional information that is going to be useful is that, as you know, the new application opened on the 19th. Currently funded providers can apply. Now we've hit a couple of bumps in that when some folks have tried to go in, that there's been a challenge in that they get an error message saying that there's already an application. We are currently in the process of fixing that. So hopefully we can get that fixed relatively soon, and we'll certainly update everyone on that. In the interim, if you do have a situation that you know of where a provider is seeking to do this, please let me know. So one of the things, for instance, if the application is in process, we can go ahead and cancel that one. I note it, and then they can apply for that a larger amount, provided that they meet the criteria. If it's already been approved, so they've already got an MOU going, that's where it gets a little bit trickier, but I want to make sure that we're tracking that. So in the time frame that we're trying to fix this particular glitch, that folks aren't missing out. So I will just keep a list of those until we fix it. But like I said, I hope to have that fixed relatively soon. We've updated the website. So on the OEC website where you see the information about E&E, you'll see that the additional criteria for the $2,000 cap has been added. we're updating the MOU, and that will be available for folks to review in the next couple of days. And of course, we won't be issuing any of the new funding without that MOU, but because the new process takes a little bit longer, those things should align. So I don't anticipate any challenges with that. The revised guidance can be found in the shared Google folder, or in the shared Google folder rather. And there's a new infographic that is addressing both the under 50K and then the over 50K process. And that's also in the shared folder now on the Google Drive. And an e-flyer, which I really encourage folks to share widely with your providers and prospective providers. There will be a Spanish version coming very soon. So please check back in the Google folder for the Spanish version. And then, as I had mentioned, we are looking to secure additional funding for both the grants themselves to providers, but also for operations under E&E. And we just need to go through the process within our current system to get that done. And we will update folks, of course, as soon as we know. And then finally, the employer-based opportunity you may have heard of. There is a link that I can provide to folks that allows for people who are interested in applying for the employer-based grant to put their information in, and as soon as the actual funding opportunity, the RFA, is released, they would get notice of that. I'm certainly not the expert on this particular funding source, but I can say that as it relates to E&E, that the funds that folks could be eligible to receive non-capital funding through E&E, since the employer-based is really largely for capital projects. So to support those entities to kick off their work, the additional lines that are non-capital under E&E could be applied to those employer-based requests as well. All right, so, oh, wait, hold on. Here we go. And then the Google Drive, and I'll put the link, I have to just coordinate myself here, but I'll get the link in here for you so that if there are still folks out there that haven't accessed it, you can do that. And, you know, as folks know who've done it, it's a little bit quirky because the state controls will not allow for automatic access. I have to say, yes, this is okay for you to come in this drive and check things out. And I get back to folks pretty quickly. So if you go ahead and you request access for the drive, once I send this link to you, I will say, yes, please come in and see this stuff, and you should be able to get in. Okay, so let's take a look here. I can actually, lessons learned from the webinar, which, you know, there was a lot of multitasking on this system that I'm not used to using. I can see your questions now. So maybe if we have time, I can answer some of them, or at least attempt to. So it says, we've got one from Rick. Is the funding to be spent down by June 30th, 2022? Is that from the point of view of the provider, council, or state? For example, when should receipts, that's a good question, Rick, be provided? When are they due? So we are really encouraging you all to have an internal deadline for your providers. Some folks are saying as early as March 30th to make sure, because that is a deadline to have everything spent down. As you know, our fiscal year is July 1st. So we really do recommend that you give yourself a couple of months and encourage the providers to spend their funds and submit their receipts well in advance of that deadline. So the next question is from Julia around the new budget report. Julia, I think you're probably talking about the budget that has to be sent in, the new one under E&E. It is also in the shared folder, so you can get access to it there. A little quirk I want to let you all know about, and we've brought this up with Deloitte, is that the budget template itself is in the system. So when you go to fill out an application, it will say upload your budget here. You just push the button and then you'll get the actual template. But there's on the instructions, for whatever reason, some kind of formatting weirdness. When you get the instructions, it doesn't show all of them. So folks will have to double click on those fields in Excel to see, particularly the ones around, I think it's line 8 on the budget. I know this is a lot of information, but it's basically the instructions are in there. People may need to finagle a little bit with Excel to see them all before we get it fixed, but we do have a ticket in to get it fixed. Let's see, can we get the E&E flyer translated into Arabic? What other languages will be available? So I can certainly put that request in. And if there are other languages that you all would like to see, please let me know, because we do have relationships with entities that can translate into a variety of different languages. So I can research if it's one that I don't know like this. But maybe somebody else on the call from OEC can tell you, but I will look into that. Let's see. I think that's it. So check out the drive, and if you didn't receive my email today, if you weren't signed up for the webinar and you have questions, additional questions, there were lots of questions and we were able to answer them in the document that I sent out, but then that document is also in the shared drive. So with that, I think I'll wrap up my portion, and again, feel free to reach out again at any time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And if anyone needs access to the drive, you can also always reach out to Michelle or I, and we can forward you the email that we received from Melissa as well.
And I'm going to try to drop it in right here, right now in the chat. So just let me. Perfect. Yeah, this takes a minute. Sorry.
Cool. And we can see your screen still. Just
so yeah, thanks. No, it's okay. There's nothing, super confidential going on here. This is actually the drive, so you can see it. But my computer is being sluggish. So anyway, I'll drop it in the chat. I don't know if you want to stop sharing me. It's up to you. I don't know if anybody else needs to say anything or get on. Let's see.
No, so that was. Oop, I don't know what I did there. Okay. I'll share myself here again. And so that was our final presentation for the day today.
Okay. So let's go. Let me go in the chat here and paste. Hopefully there you go. So there's the drive link in the chat, not in the questions. And then, like I said, I'll get the queue to approve you, and you all should be able to see everything. So I'm just putting all of the new information and the old information in there so that folks can easily access it. And I'm getting inquiries already. Awesome. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Melissa. And
Thanks,
so yeah,
everybody.
that was our last presentation of the day. We'll hang out for a couple more minutes, but we can give you guys a little bit more time back. Stay tuned. We will be, there are a lot of things that are happening in the Office of Early Childhood these days, so stay tuned to that. And otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for all the hard work you do for the children and families of Colorado.
Thank you, everyone.
Quick question, any idea when amendments will be coming? We are really hoping in the next couple of weeks here. So the strategies did get approved. If anybody wants to, there is a town hall this evening where they're going to be going over some of the relief funding strategies. That's happening tonight, starting at 5:30 until 7 o'clock. All right. Cool. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll be sending up a follow-up email as well. All right.
Good job, Charlie.
Thanks.